When Machiavelli said a ruler must learn to manipulate both fate and people, he wasn't talking about natural talent. He was talking about a kind of intelligence you forge, bend, and sharpen like a cold blade. This isn't about how much you know, it's about how much you can use to control what others can't. Have you ever wondered why others think faster, speak sharper, or see further than you do, and thought maybe they were just born smarter? Machiavelli would smirk, because that belief is to him the poison of the weak, a soft excuse for intellectual laziness. Here's the truth. Intelligence isn't gifted. It's built through discipline, through detached observation, and through ruthless mental clarity. Look at Epictetus, a man born into slavery who dissected the human condition like a surgeon, or Marcus Aurelius, an emperor, yet humble enough to write nightly reminders to himself just to keep his ego in check. They didn't become wise through destiny. They became dangerous because they knew the mind is a tool, and the one who refuses to sharpen it will be shaped by someone who does. Machiavelli didn't want you to be smart. He wanted you to be in control of whatever intelligence you have to see clearly what drives you, reason or illusion. And when you see that, intelligence stops being something to admire. It becomes something you command, like a blade steady in your grip without a hint of hesitation. You think you're getting smarter, but really you're just getting easier to predict. You scroll through philosophy quotes. You highlight entire books. You nod along to insights and feel clever, but Machiavelli would see something different. Not intellect, but intoxication. The kind of slow, sweet hypnosis that turns potential leaders into predictable puppets. Because here's what most people do. They consume knowledge for comfort. They read to feel smart, not to become dangerous. And that distinction is everything. Machiavelli never praised those who knew the most. He studied those who could apply the least and watched how easily they were ruled. He understood what few dare admit. Learning when detached from action becomes self-delusion. You think you're sharpening your mind, but if you never test what? You've learned in real conflict, in failure, in confrontation, in silence. You're not thinking, you're rehearsing. Epictetus warned his students, don't just learn philosophy, live it. Marcus Aurelius didn't write to impress the world. He wrote to correct himself. These weren't men of words. They were men of sharpening, carving thought into action, day after day until their minds became armor. But today, we confuse highlights with wisdom. We scroll through 10 insights a day and remember none. We chase clarity but avoid friction. And that's the problem. Real thinking requires resistance, not agreement, not applause, but pause. The kind of pause that happens when someone contradicts you, and instead of reacting, you investigate. That's what Machiavelli admired. Not intellect, but the ability to stay unreadable, to delay response, to weigh outcomes, to ask, what advantage does this thought give me? So when you read, ask this. Am I collecting or transforming? Does this idea make me harder to manipulate or just more eloquent when I lose? If knowledge isn't changing how you speak, how you observe, how you choose, then you're not becoming more intelligent, you're becoming more decorative, an encyclopedia no one fears. And that's what Machiavelli warned against. He didn't fear ignorance, he feared educated fools because they talk like thinkers, but move like pawns. So stop studying to feel smarter. Start studying to move differently, react differently, decide differently. Only then will the world stop reading you like an open book. Only then will you begin to write your own. Fast minds impress crowds. Cold minds control outcomes. In a world obsessed with speed, quick replies are mistaken for clarity, and clever phrasing is mistaken for intelligence. But Machiavelli knew better. He didn't trust fast thinkers. He trusted the ones who could sit in silence and strategize. Real power doesn't live in how fast you speak. It lives in what you withhold, in what you don't say, in what you see but don't reveal. That's the cold mind. Not passive, not lazy, but disciplined, strategic, predatory. Most people think they're thinking, but they're just replaying old habits, old opinions, old fears dressed up as convictions. They confuse familiarity for wisdom, speed for insight. But true clarity begins where comfort ends. Picture your mind like a battlefield. Every idea that enters is either a weapon or a liability. Every reaction you allow becomes a blueprint for others to use against you. This is why Machiavelli didn't just study rulers. He studied patterns. How people collapse under pressure, how emotions hijack reason, how a single careless word can unravel months of power building. He understood this simple law. The first to react is usually the first to lose. So what's the alternative? Cold strategy. You don't chase certainty. You train for ambiguity. You practice restraint like a soldier sharpens his blade, not out of fear, but preparation. You allow discomfort to linger, questions to breathe, and tension to mature. Because you know clarity isn't found in noise. It emerges when the storm passes and you're still standing. Marcus Aurelius. He didn't write meditations for peace. He wrote them for war. He trained his thoughts like weapons, measured, sharpened, tested. That's not Stoic serenity. That's Machiavellian conditioning. Because in the end, intelligence isn't how much you know. It's how ruthlessly you control what you think before anyone else does. So next time your heart races to react, your mind flinches to answer, pause. Don't suppress, calculate. Remember, you don't need to be fast, you need to be unreadable. And when the world can't predict your next move, that's when you own the game. Most people don't think, they react. And once you can predict their reactions, you can control them. This is what Machiavelli understood better than any philosopher who ever lived. Human nature is a pattern, and patterns once exposed can be weaponized. Watch people long enough, they repeat. Same excuses, same insecurities, same emotional reflexes recycled daily. It doesn't matter how educated they are, if they haven't rewritten their inner script, they're just machines running outdated software. That's why for Machiavelli, power didn't belong to the loudest voice, but to the calmest observer. Most people think they're making choices. They're not. They're obeying impulses, reacting to tone, to attention, to fear of rejection. Every move they make is already written in their habits. But a mind trained in cold analysis sees beyond that. It listens for patterns, not words. It notices who can't sit in silence, who needs validation to speak, who confuses kindness with weakness. Once you decode someone's rhythm, you own the timing of the conversation. And once you own the timing, you set the frame. You control the outcome. This is where intelligence becomes influence. Because it's not about being right, it's about being 10 steps ahead of the next emotional collapse. Take Epictetus, a slave who became a master of the mind. He trained himself to notice every reaction, every mental twitch, every internal story that tried to steer him. He didn't fight emotion, he dissected it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It's not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them." That wasn't Stoic calmness. That was tactical detachment, a ruler who couldn't afford to flinch. This is the Machiavellian truth. If someone can predict what angers you, what flatters you, what shuts you down, they own you. So you must become unreadable, not robotic, but deliberate. When someone criticizes you, pause. When you feel dismissed, observe. When your instincts scream, question them. Because the moment you stop reacting like the average man, you stop being ruled like one. And that is the beginning of real power. The most dangerous man isn't the one who knows the answers. It's the one who questions his own story. Every system has a back door. Every fortress has a weak wall, and the human mind is no exception. That back door is belief. Not the lies you hear from others, but the ones you've whispered to yourself for years. I'm just not disciplined. I'm not creative. I've always been bad with people. These sound harmless, but Machiavelli would call them exactly what they are. Mental shackles forged in comfort, worn with pride. Because the easiest person to manipulate is the one who's never reprogrammed their own identity. The Stoics understood this too. Epictetus refused to believe that being born a slave meant he was mentally inferior. Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in Rome, wrote daily reminders that he was not his throne, he was his choices. But Machiavelli, he took it further. He said man is quick to believe what he wishes were true, and that is the most exploitable weakness of all. So what does a Machiavellian mind do? It inverts. It flips the script. It asks, what if I'm not who I think I am? What belief do I defend that is no longer useful? What if every excuse I've repeated was a prison I built and decorated? That's the move average minds never make because it's not comfortable. It's not rewarding at first. It feels like death. But what dies is the version of you they could control. Once you make inversion a habit, you start catching the reflex before it fires. The inner voice that says, I can't, becomes, why not now? The script that says, this is who I am, becomes, who do I need to become? And that shift from passive belief to strategic self-destruction is where real intelligence is born. It's not about fixing yourself. It's about upgrading the system, wiping corrupted code, installing better logic, sharper boundaries, colder responses. Most people treat their person,